Hi and welcome to BookTube with Amy. Today is going to be my April wrap up and stats. Now, because I had took a bit of a break from BookTube, I wasn't reading as much as I normally would, so I'm just going to include everything that I read in April into one big video. Basically, it's going to be like old school back in the day BookTube with Amy, when I would just do one wrap up a month and it would last like 27 hours. So the first thing that I picked up in April was Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. Now, had a bit of a slump and I didn't read anything for the first few weeks of April, to be honest. So this was the first book that I decided to pick up to try and pull myself out of a slump. I was feeling like something a wee bit creepier and a wee bit darker, but I wasn't really wanting to jump in with something pure horror, so I read Rules for Vanishing, which is a creepy middle grade, and that's something that I have been really enjoying, something that I have purchased quite a bit of with the intent to read a bit more of, because it's a genre I've found that I really enjoy. So this is about a wee town, and this town, like loads of wee towns, have a local legend, a local ghost story, and once every 20 years I think it is, oh no, once a year, a road appears in the woods and the ghost of a wee girl who was murdered by her brother Lucy appears, and you need to play a certain game in order to escape. And there are loads of rumours about people who have played this game all throughout the years. Loads of people who have went missing and never to be found again, and our main character Sarah, her big sister Becca, went missing a year ago, and she knows that she went missing while she was looking for Lucy. So Sarah, two of her friends and a couple of Becca's friends all get together and they decide that they are going to play this game and that they are going to try and find Becca. And it's called Rules for Vanishing because there are loads of different rules that you need to adhere to in order to win the game, basically. I did enjoy this. It's a bit of a mixed media book, which I think was something that was really interesting. So you would get a chapter from somebody's perspective, usually Sarah's, and then it would be like evidence found on somebody's phone, video footage shows this, or it would be like a transcript of a police interview or a transcript of a therapist session with one of the people who are in this group, and so that made it quite interesting and I enjoyed that element of it. The game and the ghost and the creepiness was brilliant, and it's something that I really enjoyed about the book and it kept me reading. However, the characters in here I just didn't connect with at all, really. I didn't care about anybody, I didn't even care about the ghost, and I normally love a ghost, but that knocked this down a star for me because the characters I felt were pretty interchangeable, to be honest. I didn't feel like there was anything really separating them. It was generic teenage girl, generic teenage boy, generic teenage missing girl. You know, so this ended up being a 4-star for me as opposed to a 5-star, but it did really do good at pulling me out of the slump, and the mixed media made it a really quick read. And so like it's different bits like this. I actually did the audio of this as well, and so the audio is quite creepy at points when there's like the different voices and things like that happening, but I did really enjoy it. It did exactly what I wanted. Nothing spectacular or like really standout or memorable, but it was a solid 4-star read and I enjoyed it. And then, as part of Trans Girl April, read Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. This is one that's been on my list for actual ages because Scott for Gunpowder Fiction and Plot keeps plugging it and saying I'm going to adore it, and he wasn't wrong. This is my book of the year so far, just to tell you right off the bat how much I absolutely loved it. It was phenomenal, and I actually am going to do a separate book review of this book on my channel, so I'm not going to tell you too much of my thoughts here other than it was absolutely fucking fabulous. So Alison Rumfitt is a trans author, and I read this to fill the trans female fiction bracket on the bingo board, although I didn't complete the bingo board because I was slumpy as all hell, but I wanted to make an effort to at least pick up something. So this is brilliant. It is a creepy horror story if the bad guy's fascism, which is amazing. It takes place in a haunted house. We have our two main characters and the book is told from both of their perspectives, and based on what happened to them on one particular night in this haunted house. Sort of represents who they have went on to be as people, and then they come back together to face the haunted house together again. And it was brilliant, absolutely phenomenal, wonderfully written. When I finished this book, I swear to God, I wanted to kick down doors and start fucking riots. It is a phenomenal call to arms. I think that it is written so phenomenally, and there's just so many different interesting points about this book. I genuinely could not shut up about it. Like, the entire time I was reading it, I kept stopping and being like, oh my God, Simon. And he was like, Amy, I might as well have read this fucking book. Like, but I just could not shut up about it. It was such an amazing book. Total 5-star read for me. Creepy, political, queer as fuck, which like all horror should be. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would recommend anybody who enjoys horror to pick up this book. Anybody who isn't a fan of horror but really likes a politically heavy book, pick up this book, especially if you're from the UK, because it really does shine a light on some stuff that is going on in the UK and has gone on in the UK, because I think in the UK we like to pretend like we're very left-wing and liberal, and we fucking aren't. Absolutely amazing, thoroughly enjoyed it. Go support a trans author and buy this book. Then, to be very good to myself, I then read Till Death Do Us Part by Ellie Alexander, which is the next book in the Bake Shop Mystery series that I had on my shelf to read. I just wanted to be nice, and you know, I had been quite slumpy, and then gone for this amazing book. I then didn't want to jump into something else right away, like a new story or anything like that, because I feel like that's a shitty thing to do. If you've just read, you know that that's your top book of the year. Anything that you read next, like, isn't going to live up. So I thought I'll jump into my cute wee cozy mystery series, because that is always going to be a fun time, and it is not going to reflect any worse for having picked it up after my book of the year. This was so fun. This was amazing, and it was the Professor and Juliet's mum's wedding. Let me tell you, I was sobbing. Like, I'm so invested in every single character in this wee town, like, so much. I really enjoyed this. It was cute, it was cosy, it was everything I needed. Loads of great wedding food chat, let me tell you. Wedding cake happening, phenomenal. They are getting renovations done on the bakery, and I am like so excited about it. You would think it was genuinely my bakery getting renovated. Like, I stopped at one point and was like, oh my God, Simon, they're putting in a wood burning stove, and he was like, sound, mate. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. The only thing that I didn't enjoy about this book is that Carlos was back on the scene, and I am not a Carlos fan. Not at all. And this is going to be a spoiler, because I need to rant about it on the internet, and it didn't happen. So if anybody is planning to read this series and doesn't want spoiled, skip to the next book. But so at the end of this book, Carlos brings his son Ramiros, and Juliet and Ramiros really hit it off. They, you know, form a real good bond. Nice, cool, great for them. Chuff for you in that. But Carlos decides that he wants to give him and Juliet another shot. He still isn't ready to give up, even though she has been pretty insistent that, you know, two separate lives now, and she doesn't want to go back to the cruise ships, and he doesn't want to settle down anywhere else, you know, so it's just not going to work. But he says, well, actually, they've agreed to give me a year's leave, and at the end of the year I can either go back to my job, or they'll pass it on to somebody else if I don't decide that I don't want to go back. But they're going to give me a year, so how about I move here for a year? Ramiros moves here for a year because he wants to study in America anyway, and like, we can give this a real go. Which, unfortunately, I feel she's going to agree to. I really don't like Carlos. I don't know why we're just fine with the fact that he has totally lied to her for years and years. Like, lied before they got married, lied during their marriage. Like, I think it's a shitty thing to do, and I don't know why we're just pretending that's alright. Like, he had an entire human from her. But whatever, it's her choice. Don't agree with it. She should be with Thomas, but fine. So I didn't enjoy that element of it, but the book was still a 5-star read for me. I thoroughly enjoyed being back in the town. It was just everything that I needed, to be honest, after quite a crappy, heavy few weeks. I just needed some lightness and lovely, and this absolutely hit the spot. Can't recommend this series enough. And then, to continue the cosy mystery theme, I read The Julius House by Charlaine Harris, which is the 4th book in the Aurora Teagarden mystery series that I am reading for the Into the Library read-along, hosted by me and Ange from Angie's Book Chatter. Was a wee bit nervous going into this because I think everybody unanimously hated book 3. Because everybody unanimously hated book 3, we felt like we couldn't get an entire live show to that, so we're actually going to merge the live show for 3 Bedrooms, 1 Corpse and The Julius House, and that's going to be on my channel. Date undetermined at this stage, but we're just going to merge the 2 of those and make it one live show, because I think everybody's just going to go, book 3 was shite on it, and then we're not going to have much else to say. So everybody was a wee bit dubious picking up this one, and I totally get it because I felt exactly the same. The beginning of this book I absolutely hated. In fact, probably the first half of this book I absolutely hated, and was like, ugh, like I don't know, genuinely felt able to continue the rest of the series, and this just isn't like Charlaine Harris's usual writing, and it's just no her level of storytelling that I am used to. I appreciate that this is an earlier series, so she's maybe just no as an experienced writer at this stage. But then the second half of this book absolutely blew me away. It was giving me like first book in the series vibes. I really enjoyed Rose's character a lot more at the end of this book. I actually really enjoyed the mystery element in here. Didn't like it at all in book 3, and I felt like it was very lacking in book 2, but I did really enjoy it in this one here as well. And this was a 5-star for me. I know I really hated the first half yet, but I feel like the second half pulled it through, and I rated the last one that I really didn't enjoy a 4, so I think that this needs to pull back up to 5, because there were bits of this that I really did enjoy. So another 5-star for Charlaine Harris, nae too shabby. And then to round off the month, I read Welcome to St Hell, My Trans Teen Misadventure by Lewis Hancocks. So I have followed Lewis's content on Facebook for a number of years. I think his British mum stuff is just so fucking hysterical, because like if that isn't everybody's mo, I don't know what is. And so when I found out that he was coming out with a graphic novel and it was going to be based on his experience of being trans, I knew I needed it, and Simon bought me this as part of my Christmas, and it's just been staring at me ever since. And so I decided that I was going to pick this up for my trans male fiction plot on the bingo board for Trans Girl April. I really enjoyed this. I actually found myself getting quite emotional at parts of this, and I didn't expect that, and it's done in such a fun, quirky way that you wouldn't be expecting to be laughing and greeting at the same sentence, but at times I was. Lewis is so candid and so open and honest about his beginnings of his journey, and you know, the dubiety about whether he was trans or not, and although it wasn't a dubiety for him, he always knew it was whether or not he should go down that route or whether he should just try really hard to be a girl. And we saw that the impact and the effect that had on him. What was really lovely about this as well is it's like Lewis now talking to Lewis then, and so when, you know, young Lewis is having a really, really hard time, older Lewis will pop in and be like, listen, it gets better, and like there's this now, there's that now, which I thought was just really lovely, because if you are a young trans person and you're reading this, then that's going to give you so much hope and reassurance that you can actually have a really, really good fucking life, and that there is help and support out there. And then it also jumps back and forwards in time with his mum and dad as well, and he asks questions that I think, you know, a lot of trans people would maybe want to ask their parents, but maybe wouldn't have the courage or the means or the relationship there to be able to ask. So he's asking like, did you always know I was trans, and how did you really feel about me being trans at this time, and how did you feel when I said things like, I think I'm a boy trapped in a girl's body? And both his parents were equally as honest and candid. And there's a bit in here as well where his dad pops in, dad now, and is like, oh, I didn't really like the way that I'm being portrayed as dad then. And he's like, well, like, that is who you were then, but now we've got this brilliant relationship, we go to the pub for pints, we're a lot closer, you're a lot more understanding, and like that just goes to show your growth. And I thought that that was really important as well for maybe somebody who is reading this for their kid to be trans, because you have parents in here who are saying really open and honest things about how they felt, what their concerns were, and you know, sort of their journey with having a trans kid as well. And so I thought that that was actually pretty powerful, and like respect to Lewis and to his family for having these conversations and putting them in here. I thought that that was excellent. And then at the end of the book as well, he's got loads of charity and support services, which I thought was just fantastic, so that if there is anybody out there who is trans, who thinks they're trans, who are gender questioning, that they have support there that they can reach out to and try and help. This only covers like pre-transition really. It is like his very, very early stages of coming out as trans, and you know, dealing with that in terms of his friendships and his family relationships and dating. And then at the end of this, we sort of see him starting his testosterone journey. So I hope that there is going to be more graphic novels, because I really thoroughly loved this, and I can feel myself getting a wee bit emotional talking about it. I thought that it was brilliant, and I've only cried at like 2 other sets of graphic novels before in my whole life. I've cried at Heartstopper, and I have cried on a Sunbeam. They are the only 2 graphic novels so far that has made me cry until I read this. So if you're a fan of any of the graphic novels and you want to support a trans author, I could not recommend picking this up enough. It's such a fun, quirky, quick read, and it's very funny, it's very emotive, and just really candid, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. This was a 5-star read for me. And so now my stats for April. But before we get into it, so at time of filming I am still reading the Fiction Addiction April book club pick, which is The Bandit Queens by Parani Shroff. So that will be included in my April stats, but I am not technically finished it yet, so I'm not going to update you on my thoughts, but I am reading that at the moment, and I'll just update you when I do my live show for that one. I think quite a lot of other people in the group who are reading it are enjoying it a hell of a lot more than me, which is why it's taken me so long to read it, but aye, we'll get there. Now on to my stats. So these are my April stats. So in April I didn't read a whole lot of books, as you'll have seen, but I read 4 books by female authors, which makes up 80% of my reading, and I read 1 book by a male author, which made up 20% of my reading. In terms of my ethnicity split, it's a wee bit of a better split than last month, although not by much. So I read 4 books that were by white authors, which made up 80% of my reading, and 1 book that was by a BAME author, which makes up 20%. And then my queer split, I read 3 books that were queer, which made up 60% of my reading, and 2 books that were not queer, which made up 40% of my reading. So I read 2 cosy mysteries in April, I read a graphic novel, I read a horror, and I read 1 literary fiction. And in terms of my series split, I actually read more standalones in April than I did parts of a series, which is disappointing, but it's quite unusual for me. I'm obviously focusing on I seriously need to finish this challenge, so I am constantly trying to read more volumes in a series than I am standalone books. However, I did take part in Trans Girl April, so a couple of the books that I picked up were standalones for that. So my standalones this month were 3, and that made up 60% of my reading, and my books in my series, which were my 2 cosy mysteries, made up 40% of my reading. In terms of my ratings, so my white authors are rated 5 stars, my BAME authors are rated 3 stars, my male authors are rated 5 stars, and my female authors are rated 4.5. I think that's the second month in a row where my male authors are rated higher than my female authors. That's normally the other way around. It's interesting to see that trend at the minute. My queer authors are rated 5 stars, well, my queer books rather, are rated 5 stars, and my not queer books were 4 stars. Pretty standard at this stage. The entire time I've been tracking my stats, I have learned that I will always rate queer books higher, and I don't know if that is just enjoyment or representation, because they are like a mix of genres at this point. I don't know what it is, but predominantly my queer books tend to rate a lot higher than my non-queer books. And then my series books came in at 5 stars, and my standalones came in at 4.33. The Cozy Mysteries were 5 stars. My graphic novel was a 5-star. My horror book was a 5-star, book of the year, as I've said. And then my literary fiction came in at 3 stars. No a huge surprise. Literary fiction tends to rate a wee bit lower for me, just because I don't pick up as much of it. So it takes like a pretty amazing literary fiction to hit a 5-star for me, I feel. So I'm not surprised that that's at the bottom. I didn't DNF any books in April. And then in terms of my page count, I am filming this in the beginning of May. So last month is the stat that we're actually looking at. So in April, I read 1,460 pages, which brings my average count to 292 per book. I'm pretty pleased with the page count that I've managed to achieve in April, considering I had a massive slump at the end of March and pretty much for all of April. So I'm still pleased that I managed to read over 1,000 pages. Know that my page count is ever something that I properly push for anyway. It's just really there for me so that I can keep a wee eye and see what I've been reading, but no, because I want to improve month on month. And then none of the books that I read in April hit my top 10 longest books, which isn't a surprise. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you're enjoying everything that you're reading at the moment. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!